G'day, it's Rob here again. Well, today we're going to be looking at multimeters. When I say multimeters, not specifically just a multimeter, but apart from being a volts measuring instrument, which is basically what a multimeter is, it's got a little bit of current measuring ability, 10 amps in this case, it does milliamps. But basically, yeah, standard multimeters really are designed mainly to measure voltage. And this is the one I've had for forever. It's my old original Dick Smith Electronics one, and it's analog, which I do like. I do like analog for some jobs over digital, because with analog, particularly if you're measuring a make and break circuit, like say a flasher can on a car, if you're doing the tow bar wiring, drawbar wiring, you can see the needle going back and forwards each time the circuit makes and breaks. Whereas a digital one, well, the digital one I've got doesn't do that. It just gives you a reading, a static reading, and it does some sort of peak reading, I suppose. Anyway, had that for years and years and years, as long as I've been on the planet just about. And later on I upgraded to high-tech digital. This one's also Dick Smith Electronics. They've gone through the hoop. You can't get Dick Smith Electronics stuff now, but their stuff wasn't bad really, you know. I had a good run out of them. This is a much older one. This basically does the same as that one, except it's digital and it's a bit easier to read, you know, on the display than trying to figure out which band you're working on these things. Good little unit. And but once again, they're a voltmeter, you know, with limited amperage measuring ability. And quite often I want to measure amperage, you know, if you're doing, say, alternator output or checking current flow on, you know, drain on things, a higher amperage readout would be a lot better. So when I was looking on Banggood for something to review, and I always review stuff I can use. I don't just review stuff just for the hell of it. It's always something that I wanted. I see they've got multimeters now which have got a built-in amperage measuring clamp. They've probably been around forever, but anyway, they're a combination unit. They're basically a multimeter with the cable clamping ability to measure all sorts of amps that the standalone units would have. So I said to Banggood, you know, I could use one of those. Can you send me one of those? So, yep, no problem. Anyway, it's arrived and I'll show it to you. So here it is. It's a Mustool brand, which has been around, seems pretty good, pretty popular, all positive reviews on them. And this one is a unit that costs just a bit more than what this one cost originally. I think I paid about $30 for this, and this one's 40 Australian dollars, which is about $30 US. And even though they've got a lot of these clamp type meters, I chose this one because I like the way one of the probes can clip onto the side of it and you can use it with one hand. You know what it's like when you're using a standard multimeter, you know, you've got a probe in one hand and a probe in the other, and then the unit, the little display is balancing on the edge of the mudguard and it falls on the ground or drops in the engine bay, and you know, it's a pain in the butt. Whereas doing it this way, I think it's quite good. You can use these as standalone probes, but in this case, you can have one on the readout, and basically just poke it where you want, and yeah, you haven't got that problem with cables getting wrapped around things and falling on the ground, etc. So, yeah. As I said, I looked on there and I thought this is pretty good value, $40. It's the sort of money I would spend. I mean, I'd never spend $100 on a multimeter, you know. Like, you know it's going to fall on the ground or it's going to get a tough life. And this basically does everything I want, really. What most workshop guys would be looking at getting. It goes up to 100 amp. I think it does. Yeah, it doesn't say here, but I'm pretty sure it was 100 amp. It's true RMS, which means it can read irregular waveform. It does all your normal stuff, and it does frequency as well, and temperature. It looks pretty good. And as I said, all the reviews on this were totally positive. They've sold a heap of these, and yeah, everything was looking good. So let's open her up and see what we've got. Oh yeah, little case. Right, in shot. Yes, we are. See what's in it. Oh yeah. Whoops. Alright. I like the look of the cables there. A lot heavier than the ones on my other two multimeters. Yeah, the probes are, they're pointy and sharp. They'd be good for circuit board work, but the insulation comes a bit far down on them. They'd be better if it was more exposed metal, so you could poke it into, say, power sockets and things like that, or into connector plugs. I might have to modify that. That's really a bit limiting on what you can use them for. But, all right, I'll come in a bit closer on this. So, yeah, we might have to trim that plastic back, I think, for the sort of work I would be doing with this, which is mainly automotive work. But for circuit board work, that would be, I would think, quite okay. Yeah, it looks nice. This is interesting, the way they've done the plugs. How does that work? A little cap pulls out off, and it just covers the lead ends to keep them clean. That's not bad. It's different to what I've got on the other ones. They're just a single banana type compressible probe. And we've got another probe here. That's for temperature, I would expect. You can see it's a fairly, looks like heat resistant covering. I've used these before. They normally just have a little tab on the end that you just poke into the hot spot and it reads out. All right. And here's the unit. It's about the size I expected. It's a bit cold. My fingers are frozen. It's been so cold in South Australia lately. Still in the camera, yeah, on screen. That looks pretty nice. Nicely made, nice. This is my blokey hand, so you can see how big it is. It's a good size. Yeah. That's your clamp, so you just stick your cable in through it, and it takes an EMF reading off of it. It uses, I think it uses Hall principle and things like that to read the current flow. I mean, the current's got to be flowing, I think, or oscillating if it, in the AC, situation for this thing to work with this clamping arrangement. But it is basically a multimeter and a clamp amp meter combined. Got a belt clip on the back, might be useful. Oh yeah, the battery cover's held in with a little screw, that's good. Although most multimeters you have to disassemble a few screws out of them to get to the battery. They don't normally just have a clip-in type cover. Not the ones I've used. It's got a serial number, a couple of connector lead points on the bottom. Doesn't feel like it's just a hobby machine. I mean, everything seems pretty good, about what you'd expect. Okay, well I guess I better put some batteries in it and see how it goes. It takes 2 AAAs. Okay, so I've put a couple of Vata batteries in there. It's all done quite well. They've got a little brass thread section, so you're not just screwing into plastic like some multimeters. But that's quite well done. And this just clips in, and you do up a little Phillips headed bolt. So now it should fire up. So I suspect the red button does that. Now you've got to give it a good push. It goes in a long way. What's happening? Oh, it depends where you got the knob, what you're measuring. So picking up. Not sure what's happening. I've got to read the instructions. Seems to be. Goodness knows what's happening here. Alright, I'll have to read the instructions to see how the hell this thing works. So, yes, the instructions. So, they're in the back of the little packet. Now, I've never used one of these, as I said, one of these type meters before in my life, so this is all new to me. So, you get a little manual, which looks to be in English. It is, it's in the Queen's English. It's in very small Queen's English. I'm going to have to have a close look at this and see what it does. I can see, yeah, it does 100 amp, so that'll be interesting. I might even try and put the cable around one of the welding leads on those little inverter welders. You know, say set the inverter at 90 amps and see how it reads. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see how accurately this clamp function works. Apparently with this one too, you can poke it near a 240 volt socket and it can sense whether the socket is alive or not, which is pretty cool. And it can also identify active and neutral on your household wiring, which one's which. Yeah, right, okay. I'll have to read the manual and come back. Right, well I've read the manual, and the first thing we'll look at is V-alert. Now V-alert is this button here. It's independent of what the setting here is. If any of these sockets or wiring, cable or wiring are active, it will tell you. So we'll press the button, bring it in, it beeps and it lights up. Pretty good, eh? Bringing it. It's pretty sensitive. I like that feature. So if you're working on the house, you know, working on wiring, AC wiring, that's a great feature. Save a lot of stuffing around. I tried swiping this clamp sensor over a panel wall to see if it could read through the fibre wall and locate live wiring, but it's not sensitive enough to do that. You can't use it for that purpose. You can only use it to scan exposed wiring and exposed wall sockets and power outlets, switches, stuff like that. So yeah, it does a good job of that, but no, you won't be able to just wave it around over a wall and expect it to find live cables buried inside. Now, I should explain this thing's also got a backlight on the display. Press this button and it lights up. So if you want to work in dark areas, you know, roof cavities, engine bays on cars, up under dashboards, that'll be handy. You can use that. It actually times out after about 10 seconds as well, to save battery life. The display is curved screen, which is a bit reflective, more than a bit reflective. I would prefer to see a flat screen, but the numerals are very, very easy to read. It's very good in that regard. Now the clamp is active all the time whenever you're in amp setting, and it's, you know, regardless of whether the leads are in or not. And as you can see, it's got a reading already, even though we're not actually reading anything. And it had me puzzled at first what's going on, but basically it's picking up EMF in the region, probably from the fluoro lights or whatever's going. The book explains that you'll have to zero the unit to compensate for that by pressing that button there. So that's something to be aware of. Okay, no big deal though. Okay, the next function we're going to check is the live function. We've got one lead going into the input, and this is a probe from our other multimeters. Because these tips are too short to go into our power sockets without modification, take some of the plastic off. So anyway, it's a standard connector, so basically you can put other leads into it. So yeah, I'll stick this into a live socket and we'll see, it should indicate which is active and which is neutral. So the active one should light up on the display once again. Alright, well here's our live power board. So now we'll put it in, press the V button, that's neutral, that's active. So it tells you straight away which of the connectors is active or neutral. So the next question is, how sensitive is this clamp? Well, here we are reading the amps being output by this little solar panel. It's operating on sunlight coming through a skylight above my head. This is a little panel you use to charge mobile phones in your car. And at the moment we've got 0.184 amps, so it's not much, but it is outputting. Now, can this clamp actually read through these wires, you know, and get a meaningful result? Well, I can tell you right now, I don't think it will. There's obviously a bottom limit on how low an amperage this clamp can read. I think you'll find it's for higher outputs. So let's disconnect that and put it on the lead and see what happens. Now, you can't hurt a solar panel by shorting it like this, so don't go bagging me for doing this. Alright, let's get a 0 on here again. Put the clamp on a wire, and we're not getting anything really useful. Certainly we're not getting anything near. No, it's a nonce. There's no result. It's basically incapable of reading such a low amperage. It's getting a bit of hash, but nothing useful. So if you're going down to these sort of amperages, you have to use the probes. So now we'll do something different. I've got a 5 amp battery charger hooked up to a cordless electric drill, my old Bosch, and I've got the meter, the clamp around one of the wires. We'll start the drill up and see how many amps it's reading off the gauge, and we'll see what the meter shows. So let's give it a go. .7, a bit under 2, so yeah, so let's do that again. We'll hold the figure. So we've held the figure and it's 1.7 amps, and the meter was a bit under 2, so yeah, it's around the money. It's around the money. I'd say this is probably more accurate than that. Okay, now we'll check the motor on the bandsaw. This is supposed to be 6.2 amps. We'll fire it up and see what it actually draws on the meter. Well, no load amperage is 4.8 and the plate on the motor says 6.2. Doesn't seem to make a big difference. So 4.8 with no load on it. So I suppose put a load on it and see what happens. So you can see that the motor isn't actually pulling it much at all, really. 4.84. Now we'll check it against a wall plug type amp meter and see how it compares. Okay, and the last test I'm going to do will be temperature. It's 13 degrees C in the shed, not hot. I've got a soldering iron off frame and I'll touch it onto the tip of that. Whoa, up she goes. So, it obviously works. 200 and 300, 325. Pretty bloody hot. So yeah, the temperature side of things works pretty good. So that's the end of the review as far as I'm concerned. I can't really review to any greater depth. There's other functions like frequency and that I haven't checked. The video would be too long if I did every function it's got. And at the end of the day, it's a multimeter that anybody could use. You know, it's just got the clamp function, which I was mainly interested in. And yeah, I like this setup here. I was only going to give it a 9 out of 10 because of the probe tips and the reflective screen. But then I had a closer look at these probes and they've actually got a removable cover, removable insulator. So how good is that, eh? So here I was thinking, and I saw some other comments where people said the same thing, oh, you know, the tips are a problem. They're not really. They've thought of everything. They've even got these insulating covers that can go on or off as you want to. So super duper good idea. It's a well thought out unit, a really good unit. Wow, you know, you couldn't ask for more really, I think, for your $40. I think it's terrific. So if it didn't have a reflected screen, I'd give it 10, but 9.5 still pretty bloody good. Okay, well that's it from me. I hope you found this interesting, and okay, you know, it's not laboratory standard testing or reviewing, but it's more sort of down to earth what the average workshop guy could do as far as looking at one of these things. So, until next time, see you around.